Good evening, our professional colleagues. It gives me great pleasure once again to welcome you to another episode of our ICAN on Air, powered by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. Today is Thursday, the 8th day of the month of December, and gradually the year is winding up, and I sincerely want to appreciate you all for being there every Tuesday and every Thursday to learn and unlearn, tap on the contemporary things as we do every Tuesday and Thursday. Once again, you're welcome to another episode of ICAN on Air. And as usual, I've come with another topical issue, which is very germane to individuals, to organizations, and to government itself. And that's tax compliance, taxpayers' mindset. And to do justice to this evening is no other person than the person I always refer to as Titi Tax, in person of Titi Layo for work on FCTI FCA. She is the Group Head Strategic Tax and Compliance, Dangote Industry Limited. She's involved in training and capacity building in taxation, accounting, fraud examination, and internal control. She has over 27 years professional experience cutting across accounting, internal control, fraud examination, and tax practice. A graduate of mathematics education from Ogun State University and has a master's in international business law from University of Cambridge, Charles, UK. She has an MSc and PhD in accounting from Christmas University, Tuck and Hughes in British West Indies. She had a professional career with PwC and Deloitte, and her first industrial experience with Ohando PSC. Dr. Fawokon is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria and also a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Taxation and other professional bodies both within and outside Nigeria. She is a governing council member of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria and vice president of the Association of Certified Fraud Examiner, Lagos chapter, among other leadership roles that she possesses. She's also the technical secretary of Ilupeju Bagada and District Society, and she served as the pioneer social and publicity secretary of the same district. It's going to be a wonderful time this evening. Like I will always say, you have your good and your products. The best place to promote them is always on ICAN on Air, because that is where we give it the global visibility that it requires and for prompt promotion of your goods and services. On that note, I will be going on a very short break, and when I'll be coming back, I'll come in with our guest for today, where we'll do justice to our topic. Please stay tuned. Don't go anywhere.
As a finance professional in a disrupted business landscape, what does it take to be in demand? What does it take to attract great paying international roles? If you're an ICAN member, it'll just take one exam. That's all it takes to complete the globally recognized CIMA professional qualification and the internationally respected CGMA designation. As a CIMA member and a CGMA designation holder, employers will look at you as a finance professional, constantly acquiring new skills to add value to the business. That's why they'll be willing to pay premium to hire and retain you. If you have 5 years of relevant experience and are an ICAN member, you can directly sit for the final exam of the SEMA Professional Qualification, the Strategic Case Study exam. Start studying the SEMA Professional Qualification. Prepare to make an impact.
Welcome back. And like I promised you, I'm in with our guest for today, Dr. Titi Fowokon, FCTI, FCA. Dr. Fowokon, good evening and welcome to ICAN on Air.
Good evening, Sheson. How are you today?
Yeah, like I said in my prologue, this is the woman I call Titi Tax. Everything about her is tax. The ear, everything. And we're going to do justice to the topic of today called tax compliance, taxpayers mindset. Let me start like this. Why tax is considered as an important revenue generation by governments across the globe. The word tax is hardly received without care by many taxpayers, whether individual, corporate organization, name it. That scare attitude is there. It's a great privilege having you to take us through the ABC of tax today. Our global audience that are widely connected will be pleased to hear your highlight on the importance of tax to the growth and development of a nation.
Thank you, Sheson. Thank you, our viewers, all my professional colleagues globally. Happy to be on here with you. If we let's even take taxation from the conventional way, and we know that taxation is imposition of compulsory levies on individuals or entities by government, and is that like that almost in almost every country of the world. Primarily is for raising tax revenue for government expenditure, though it can serve other purposes as well. So when you are talking about importance of tax to growth and development of a nation, we have to first of all understand that that's the most important source of government revenue. It's sustainable. It's something that whether you like it or not, as long as there are people living in that country and they are working, and there are businesses that are making profit, they will pay tax. I think that's what I always tell people. If there's income, there's tax. If there's no income, there's no tax. If there's profit, there's tax. If there's no profit, there's no tax. So it's just a small analogy I give to almost everyone. Now, if you look at the objective of government imposing tax, it could be in form of resource allocation, it could be income redistribution, it could be economic stability. And those objectives have the different roles they play. When you're talking about resource allocation, ordinarily, maybe by government policies, try to make sure that some things use tax to discourage consumption of some things, or use tax to make sure that money is in some hands. There's a way it's going to be allocated. And we come to income redistribution. You are talking about inequalities in the distribution of income and wealth. And tax is a means whereby it can be used to at least redistribute this. Now, in terms of economic stabilization, we're talking about tax policy, government expenditure policy. You're talking about monetary policy. CBN just did one policy recently that all of us are jittery about, which will have tax implications anyway. We're talking about debt management. So we're talking about maintaining high employment or like price stability. Tax has a role to play in all this. So for a government, for an economy, tax has a lot of role to play. Now, if we look at some international report, like the UN report on financing for development says that taxes play a vital role in financing state spending on basic social services such as education, healthcare, and social security. It's here in Nigeria that we don't value social security. But in some places, social security is something that they give top notch. And education, we shouldn't have as children on the road. Tax is supposed to help us. The children should have basic education from primary to secondary to tertiary institutions. And then healthcare is paramount. It's paramount. Thank you.
Great. That is a very beautiful way highlighting the importance of tax. The way you have simplified it, it has just shown to me that tax is like blood that flow inside us for every nation. If you don't have it, then there is problem for you. I proceed. Let's go to refresh our memories. Could you please run us through our global audience that is connected, the classification and type of taxes that are out there?
Okay. Generally, there are two basic classification: common, direct, and indirect. It's so easy to look at that. Now, when you're
Yeah.
talking about direct, you are talking about tax, the impact, the incidence of the tax is typically on individual or a corporate entity. It's direct on them. Is in terms of maybe the income they generate. For as an individual, you collect your salary, the taxes on that salary, subject to some reliefs. If you're a corporate entity, you make profit, the tax on your profit subject to some adjustments to the profit to be able to come up with the tax you're going to pay. So it's direct on the individual, direct on you, because you are making the money on by virtue of your wealth. Now we have things like income tax, we have capital gains tax, you have a property or you decide to sell, you have anything you want to sell, you make gains, you pay tax on it. That's capital gains tax. And we have the indirect. The indirect tax is more of by way of consumption or production of goods and services, and that you won't feel the impact, but you're paying like VAT. We pay VAT, you may not feel the impact. They say 7.5, but you don't see it. You buy something, the VAT is inside it. Or stamp duties. You want to get documents, you have to stamp it, one nominal amount, you pay 50 naira for every whatever paper that you put there, because it carries weight. We have excise duty, we have customs, they're all indirect taxes. You don't feel the custom directly, but when you import, you pay. Excise, you now you have the sugar, the sin tax. You consume carbonated drinks,
Yeah.
you pay sin tax, and it's embedded inside. So that's indirect. So it's either of those two forms.
Very wonderful submission. Taxes and classification is basically two, but they have all their sub underneath it. If it's not direct, definitely it will be indirect. It must appear so simple, but many individuals and organizations will require education on tax compliance. Please, does it mean what does it mean to be tax compliant?
Thank you, Jason. Um, Before I go into answering that question, I want to first of all say that most countries have what we call a tax system. So when you want to talk about tax compliance, you must first of all talk about having a tax system. You cannot beat something or nothing. That is what we should know. We have a tax system that would make you to pay something for public or for national needs or for something that will make government to be able to make some other things good for us. And when you're talking about a vibrant tax system, you must have like tax policy as a tripod, the tax law, and tax administration. So it is in the midst of all this that you now start talking about tax compliance. Now, the tax policy gives the direction. Where are we going in terms of taxes? Where are we going in terms of tax payment? In terms of what people should know, they should know how to pay, what to pay, when to pay, where to pay. And then we move to the tax law that gives direct the specific way those policies will be applied to the individuals, to the corporate, to the citizens. And the legislation that gives this force to the laws are there. Now we now have tax administration. Somebody must apply the law. Somebody must monitor the way the law is being applied. And so compliance, from my own perspective, comes after the tax policy has set the direction for enactment of the tax laws to be administered by the tax authorities and for the taxpayers to abide by the laws and regulations guiding the application of the laws. So when you talk about this, you're talking about tax compliance. So the people know what to pay, when to pay, how to pay, where to pay. It must be very clear.
So
And
when
that's
you're
where
talking,
compliance can come in.
sincerely speaking, that is a definition I'll be crediting to our guest today, Dr. Titi Fowoka. You should be able to have the direction and definitely with the law, stating the specific and having people to monitor, oversee, administer so that everyone know what to do at a specific time. Let me quickly state this, that all our viewers, you have the opportunity of asking our guest question today. Sincerely speaking, tax is what we cannot avoid. Tax is something that, from our definition, the blood that flows through our body. Once there is income, from what our guest said, there must definitely be tax. Once there is profit, there must definitely be tax. So on that note, please feel free to bring in some of your questions so that I can do justice to them. Dr. Titi, I proceed with this. As a Nigerian, I know you and I know that we are not from the other side. And a seasoned tax expert, what would you say is the level of tax compliance in Nigeria? Your rating on that?
That's a very big question you're asking, but
Oh,
I'll try.
we are both Nigerian, and I'm sure you know most of those things.
Yeah, let's even start from the perspective of the position of Nigeria in terms of population. I know we all know that Nigeria is the seventh most populous country in the world. And so it's expected that tax collection from that angle should be top notch, at a high level. But we are not there yet. We are still low in terms of tax compliance compared to other countries. Um, we we still have a lot to do. Let me put it that way. There's a lot that have been done by government. I want to give credit to the government. At least we've had so many tax reforms in this country, but it is still not giving us what we expect. We have issues around data. We have issues around the tax-paying culture of the people that is not top-notch. We have people around voluntary compliance, issues around voluntary compliance. So if I would want to say, I would say that our compliance level is still low compared to what is expected. And I know as time goes on, awareness on tax compliance has increased over the years. A lot of people know more about what they need to do for tax. We have technology that has been introduced now, so it's forcing everybody. You can do it from the comfort of your room, so you don't have excuse not to do what they're supposed to do. But it's still beyond. I know we used to say 6% of GDP, tax to GDP is 6%. But some people will say, have you added other things? Is it only the compliance? Is it the corporate or what? But if you look at it globally, it's low. And you have countries that are surrounding us whose tax to GDP is higher. So which means that their level of compliance is better. Even within Africa. So we are big brother Africa. We are still not there, I believe, but we are improving. Let me say we're improving.
It's very, very low, the compliance level. There's a lot to do. And with time, we'll get there. Before I come to pick the question of our audience, let me quickly take you up on this. It is a known fact that many Nigerians does not believe they should be paying tax. I know you and I know that. There is no justification. Even though it's a compulsory levy enacted by law, but people feel they should not be paying tax. Doctor, could you run us through some of the reasons for this apathy when it comes to tax payment, especially in the country we call Nigeria?
Okay, thank you. I will start from my last response that our level of compliance is low. And the first thing, I remember our last ICAN conference, that's before this, yeah, we talked about building trust in governance. The first thing is that trust deficit between the citizens and the government. Is the first. Because the question will be, okay, if I pay and I still have to carry my cost, I have to fix my car because of bad road, I have to buy a generator, I have to buy fuel, I have to do this. What is government doing for me? Though I tell people, you do your part. When you do your part, then you can now say, government, I've done my part to fulfill yourself. A social contract. We sold say, look, government, I'm giving you these taxes because I'm bound to do it. I'm bound to obey the rules of the land. I'm bound to pay my tax. But I expect that you also will recognize that I have a need to survive as a citizen. And so that is the first place where people tend to come from angle, though it's not an excuse not to comply. It's not, but it's something that needs to be talked about. Awareness of citizens about tax obligations. It's also another issue. In fact, if you go to SMEs, they will tell you that I don't understand this thing you people are talking about, all this your taxes. So I had to now break it down to them
Hmm.
to the extent of if you buy, how is VAT calculated? It is value add.
Hmm.
When you are producing and you buy materials for production, so in that material you pay VAT. When you produce, you apply VAT. So you take out the VAT you pay on the material, from the VAT you pay, you charge on the product. They now say, okay, that's what you're. So that level of understanding is not really that much. The awareness
Hmm.
of what to do, poor management, things like accountability. Everybody expects, if we are accountants, if I collect money every time, I don't even come and say sorry, the money I collected, I spent this on this is the evidence, these are the receipts, I spent this
Hmm.
on this, and now my auditor do the audit. The auditor comes in and say, this is the audit report, there's no problem, money no loss. Pardon me
Hmm.
to use that language. They are happy, and they will say, okay, next time. I happen to hear some people say, it's an estate, and they said, we will not pay this money because we don't see audit reports.
Hmm.
So it also applies in the case of this, but it's not an excuse. But I believe that it's an issue that a lot of people struggle with, in terms of this insecurity, in terms of the way money is spent, the way money is flounced around. People tend to
Hmm.
lose interest. But I
Hmm.
believe that if we can get back to the drawing board, we should be able to encourage people. I know I have some states that have shown that taxpayers' money can work, and those states, they
Hmm.
are getting cooperation. So I think
Hmm.
that's one of the things that needs to be looked into.
Sincerely speaking, from your words, if you can build the trust that is expected, there is trust deficit now. Definitely, the compliance level should go and increase the awareness. Let there be enlightenment, education on the part, and above all, accountability. Let me pick the first question from our audience today, Shuaib Badmos, and it needs explanation on the function of a tax consultant.
Okay, thank you. A tax consultant is supposed to be a guide for taxpayers. A
Hmm.
tax consultant needs to know his onions. I mean, must know the facts behind taxation, must
Hmm.
understand the business of the client. So you are providing service to your client, and that service is to guide your client to comply.
Hmm.
You also make sure that your client does the right thing at the right time in the right way. So you must be ahead of your client.
Hmm.
So the work of a tax consultant is somebody that knows what it is in terms of taxation, the tax laws, the application, can also guide his clients to do the right thing within the tax laws. Thank you.
As simple as that. And I want to
I just
believe
made it
that,
simple.
yeah, it's always simple when I have Dr. for working with me. She simplify everything by just explaining. Let me proceed before I continue with the question. Non-compliance of tax will either be in form of tax avoidance or tax evasion. Could you please educate our global viewers on the difference between tax avoidance or tax evasion, and take us through the reason why taxpayer will want to avoid or evade taxes?
Okay, I always say that tax avoidance and tax evasion are just wide opposite. But in recent times, tax avoidance, hey, there's now becoming a thin line.
Hmm.
Tax evasion is outright illegal. It's more
Hmm.
of you're concealing your income, you're concealing information. You don't want the tax authorities to know what you've done. You're trying to mutilate some records or trying to judge some things, or it's illegal. It's in fact it should be. I usually say it's criminal. You're just trying to be smart, but that
Hmm.
smartness is not the best. Now,
Hmm.
tax avoidance is basically you are trying to legally look for how do you manage your tax affairs within the confines of the law. The
Hmm.
law has said some things, and by the time you look at it, literal interpretation, okay, this is what it means. How can I structure my affairs in such a way that I will still get the benefits that the law gives? It is not illegal, but when it becomes aggressive to the
Hmm.
extent that you are doing everything whatsoever, even what you don't have, you want to claim, then you are becoming tax evader.
Hmm.
So we need to just get that. Now, even globally now, when you don't have substance in a structure and you say you are managing your tax, it's becoming an offense in the global tax environment. So you can explore loopholes in the tax laws to the extent allowable, not to the extent that you will now be concealing information or trying to do things. You can't do tax avoidance after you've committed the transaction. It has to be a forward-looking thing. You need to look ahead and say, okay, how can I take advantage of these opportunities in the law, and plan your affairs in that line, documentation wise, structure wise, everything. You need to do that. So that's the difference. So where there's no accountability and transparency in tax revenue generation, for those who are tax compliant, they will be very pained. It's painful because they will feel, I'm doing the right thing, I'm doing everything I want to do, and so I'm not getting accountability. But that doesn't mean they should go for the evasion, but they will be painful. It will be painful to them. And that is why, for those who are in charge of tax policy, tax admin, they need to consider the feelings of the compliant taxpayers. Why you're saying people should not evade, and we're saying they should do reasonable avoidance, then we should also consider the pains of not encouraging them to continue to comply.
That basically gave the distinction between tax avoidance and tax evasion. Before I proceed, I want to encourage our members bringing your question and also state dates that we've observed that some of us are using the opportunity to promote your goods and services. I've given the instruction to our producer that such people should be banned. If you have your products, if you have your goods, contact us. We've always projected at the secretariat. We'll bring and give life to it, not you coming illegally. I'm sure you know that we pride ourselves with integrity and we must be seen to do that. Ernest is asking this question. Dr. Titi, your introduction on tax compliance was top notch. My question is, what can be done to spread the tax net in order to capture Nigerians' increasing informal sector?
Thank you, Ernest, for that question. I think I've mentioned this at some other forum on how to deal with the informal sector. And they're the largest in terms of the business environment. And the problem we're having is data. Do we even have a data of the people in the informal sector? No. I've seen some states that have tried to say, how do they bring them in? There's a presumptive tax regime that is being mentioned for the tax authorities. But you can only apply this presumptive tax regime if you have the machinery. Some of these people may have problem with knowing even what is the tax base. How do they calculate tax on? And some states have developed things like, I always use a susu as a, pardon my, bring small, let me get small from you, and then you pay your tax. I know some, like for instance, in the market, somebody buys something in the morning, maybe buys good stuff to sell or provisions to sell. She knows how much she has bought it for, and she has put an amount on it to sell. So she's making some income, some profit.
Yeah.
Is she able to identify what tax she will pay? I've always said tax education is very important. I was opportunity to speak to some market women and told them how even to maintain their book. They mix personal money, private money with business money. And that's where we accountants should be able to come to their aid. So a lot of times they don't know what to separate, how to separate what they are making, what they are not making. And this is a pain point. So to even bring them to the tax net would be a bit a tough one to do. But I think government can have a way of having their data, having a way of getting to them, to the grassroots, and letting them understand their obligations. You see, market people fear local government than the state government. When local government people are coming, they collect 15 naira today, or they collect more from them. But when the state is coming, they will do as if they don't sell anything. And these are the people in the informal sector. So we need to have a way whereby we have, how do we get the data of the people in the informal sector that have maybe regulated business? A lot of times we can go through the artisan groups. We have the motor mechanics group. We have the, I think they have
Okada
the
drivers.
Okada drivers, like that. Through those groups, you can actually get some information and educate them, and then they can help you. Alaba markets. How do they do the tax? How do they, you need through their association, you can actually get them. And they fear Yaloja more than anybody. So if you partner with Yaloja or Babaloja, you are able to get them to understand, you're able to educate them and bring them to tax. Some states are doing this well because most of the informal sector seems to fall under the states, while some are still trying to understand how to do it.
That's a submission from Dr. Titi. And Titi Layo Shofela, I will consolidate your question with my, because it seems you took the question off my mouth, reading my mind. Possibly you're very close to me. And let me take this, Dr. Titi, by saying we all agree that tax is compulsory. You said that at the beginning, and I connote it with saying it's like blood that flows in our body. We all agreed it's a compulsory levy, but the tax revenue is naturally expected to be deployed for the benefit of the nation at large. Our global audience will appreciate if you can shed light on the deployment and utilization of tax revenue, especially in Nigeria. And why I said that, Titi, it will take care of Titi Liar, Titi asking Titi question of those things that can improve voluntary compliance. I'm sure if you address this, you should be able to point at that particular question. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Sheson. Thank you, Titi, for that question. Let me start from the needs of citizens. Citizens are in need of physiological survival needs for food, water, good air to breathe. They are in need of safety and security needs. Free from danger. They can sleep well, they can wake up, they can move around, they are not afraid. They are in need for belongingness, social acceptance, social interaction. They are in need for esteem, competence, skill, appreciating them, recognizing them, respecting them. They are in need for self-actualization, emotional balance, and things like that. Now, where a nation is able to play its role, its part in creating an environment that meets the needs, let's even say the basic ones, you will see the joy in citizens to want to do what we call this tax payment that we're talking about. If government can show citizens that, look, your 1 naira has earned you this good hospital. You enter, you get drugs, you go home, you're okay, you come back, you feel cool. Your 2 naira tax or 20,000 tax has given you this like 24 hours power supply, and you can do your business, your customers are not running away. If this can be done, we've created an impression in taxpayers. They are willing. I will take an example of Lagos State. Lagos State, under the administration of former Governor Babatunde Raji Fashola, went into housing estate. And I know some people listening to me are also beneficiary of this estate. The way the estate was given to people, you have to make sure you pay your tax for 5 years, you have your LASTRA and all those things. Once you meet that condition, you apply, you send your application, you're able to get it. And at the end of the day, when they're doing the selection, it's open. They roll the ball, they pick your name, you collect your certificate, you're sure. And at the end of the day, you start your payment. Majority of people that got into those type of estates are willing to pay their taxes because they can see that they are seeing the result and the reward of dividend that they pay, dividend of democracy. So if government can demonstrate that, look, we care about you. Without the people, there's no nation. And they now provide these things, then you are able to motivate them. Now, let's take again the road infrastructure credit. That is just recent, but we have some roads. Some people fly Obajan or Kaba Road. They go, no, it's very good road. The road is this, that's where we fly. We have Oworonshoki Road, under road infrastructure. We have some other roads. Now we have some private companies who have also gone into this. Indirectly, this is tax money. Because those people are going to use the money they used to build the roads, in form of taxes, they get credit. So you're not going to pay their tax. So instead of paying your tax, the money you used to build the road, you use it to offset your tax. But the private sector is willing to do this because it can give quality and the citizens can be happy. So if things happen that people feel the impact of what their tax money is doing, they'll be willing to voluntarily comply and pay more.
Great.
Most times I tell people, do your own, and then government should be held accountable. Thank you.
Always emphasizing that word, do your own, and we hold the government accountable. Definitely, there is social trust deficit, social contract deficit. But like our guests today have said, do your own and we'll move on. Before I pick my question, it will be unfair if I do not recognize my regular viewer on the show, Fagbola, who has come with this question to Dr. Titi. What kind of incentives approach could be deployed to ease tax compliance, particularly with the MSMEs?
Okay, now the MSMEs are also a category of taxpayers that government tried to encourage with the Finance Act 2019. You know, there's some amendments in the Finance Act that seems to give zero, let me say zero tax liability for small businesses, and most MSMEs will fall around that category, and then for medium, reduced tax rate. Now, when we are talking about what type of incentive, it also depends on the type of business they do. There are currently a lot of incentives in the Nigerian tax environment, a lot of incentives. If you go to the NIPC website, you see a list of businesses, products, industries that are given pioneer. Pioneer gives you tax relief, tax-free income for 3 to 5 years.
5 years.
And your dividend from those income is also tax-free. And now with the amendment of the Finance Act, where you even have dividend from those income you distribute, and that dividend is redistributed, there's also some tax incentive in quotes, because you once you are able to minimize the impact of tax on you, there's an incentive. So there are quite a number of things that could be depending on the business they do. Now, they also need to understand how tax applies to them. I think if they understand more, they will know what is in it for them. The incentives are there, and their education on tax matters will also help them.
Great, great. And that, I believe Fagbola has picked that. Before I come to the question that is being displayed by one of my participants this evening, let me pick this question. And I want you to be fair with it from my side here. Can you give us you're already smiling. You said you are reading my mind, and I want you to be objective with this. Can you be fair and objective in giving your assessment of the performance of the Federal Inland Revenue Service and the different state internal revenue service in Nigeria today? I want you to be fair. Don't worry. If you give it the truth, they will not run after you. But give our audience the fair assessment of these agencies.
Okay, thank you, Jason. You know why I had to smile is that, you know, when you start talking about the tax authority, they will start looking for you as a tax, whether you pay your proper tax. Okay, now
That's why I said you should be objective on it
no,
too.
let's actually, in actual fact, the Federal Inland Revenue Service has done a lot. They've actually changed the face of tax compliance in Nigeria. I must give it to them. You know, they've moved us away from paper tax compliance to online tax compliance. We have the Promax, even though, see, there's no technology you introduce that will not have its own bottleneck or its own teething problems. And as the learning curve increases, you start to even out the issues. So they've actually changed the face of tax compliance. There's increased awareness. I know recently they've created so many other offices to reach out to the incentive, they call it Tax Incentive Management Office, for those ones that are in Pioneer, for those ones that are in Free Zone, because of the amendment to the Finance Act. And I would say that they've even funded government expenditure. So we can see that in terms of tax collection, they are really, really, really getting money for government. And let me be sincere with you, even as they are getting money for government, citizens are still saying, what are we getting from it? I'm speaking the citizens' voice. So this is Titi speaking as a citizen. So if you look at even the amendment to the tax law, there are stricter penalties now for non-compliance. So whether you like it or not, you are forced to comply. Otherwise, you pay the penalty. So they've tried to change the tax culture, but it could be better. It could be improved on. I believe there's still room for improvement. When it comes to the states, well, some states are making the tax environment taxpayer friendly, while some still believes that McGregor theory, Y and X, taxpayers will not listen, coerce them. You know, you know. So, but I believe that there's a general body with joint tax board, they all look at it together. But in the recent time, the states have also been trying to increase in the IGR. Lagos stands out. I think some other states like Rivers also, in terms of what they're getting, they're able to support government projects from this. But in terms of taxpayer relationship, I think that at the federal and at the state level, there should be some form of having human face when it comes to tax and for tax compliance drive, and not unnecessarily burden taxpayers. Where you have the tax authorities within the same tax authority, you have two different departments, and they are struggling for one company or one client or one, or one taxpayer, and it becomes like the taxpayer will get a letter from this office, get this one, get that one. It's not helping the taxpayer to do their business. If there's no profit, they are not doing well, you can't get tax to be paid. But if you allow them to do their business with peace of mind, not because they are afraid that taxpayers are coming, then they would be able to comply. They will be able to do what they're supposed to do. I would say in terms of assessment of their performances, revenue generation, some states are still trying to get there. Some are ahead. And you see, there is never satisfaction. When you meet 10 billion, they will give you 11 billion. And when you do 3 trillion, they will give you 7 trillion. Government will give you more. So we will still keep seeing them raising the targets for them as they perform. And it's in every facet of life. When you perform well, the reward of good work is more
This
work.
one, oh,
So,
yeah,
and the more
yeah.
work you get, the more your base, the people that you are going to get those money from, the more pressure on them. But one thing I want to say is that the compliant taxpayers, they should be able to get some relief, such that they are not even put under more scrutiny for being compliant. I think that's one of the things that seems to stand out. I'm talking as a taxpayer that is in Nigeria and in Nigeria. And I think our authorities need to, but in terms of changing the face of tax compliance, they've tried to do that. We see taxpayers' money working, and we just felt it's not yet enough. It's not enough. We can do better.
Brilliant, Dr. Titi, for welcome. And for our viewers that are just joining us, I've been guesting our own Dr. Titi for welcome, FCTI FC, and she's been talking to us on tax compliance, the taxpayer's mindset. One thing I can assure you, Dr. Titi, for our viewers on this program, they talk about contemporary things. And that will take me to Bameye question. He said, good evening, Dr. Titi. What are the tax implications on businesses as regard the new policy that was released recently on cash withdrawal by the Central Bank of Nigeria?
Okay. I'm not sure this will affect how our taxes will be paid. I think what the CBN is just trying to do is to ensure that cash is not flying in the economy. Even as it is now, tax authority don't even allow you to carry cash. They expect you to pay your tax. You can pay your tax now through direct payment online. You get your DIN, send to the bank, and then they make payment. So, but in my own view, I'm not sure it's going to affect your tax compliance. I'm not sure it's going to affect your tax liability. Your tax is your tax. Your income is your income. It could maybe in balancing on some people that are used to cash basis, adjusting to now having to do everything online, internet downtime, and things that could have some challenges. Maybe they drop in their performance in business could happen, but that doesn't really say that they did not comply for taxes. And if performance drops, it means that the income to be taxed will reduce, and the tax the government will collect will also reduce, because it's not something that have to do. So it's not that you're changing your business model. You're just saying don't carry cash. Just just make sure that everything passes through the system. Now, for those who are hiding, those who don't want to be in the tax net, it will now open everybody up, because because your transactions will now be seen through the banks, and your BVN is required for registration in the state anyway. So once they have your BVN, all those your different accounts will just be pulled together, and then
Be
you explain
consolidated.
and then explain how the money enter those accounts. If they are money that does not come from business, what's wrong with you explaining? If you take a loan now and the bank credits your account, it's a loan. No tax authority will tell you to pay tax on a loan because you are borrowing money to do something, you know. So it's all might make sure that people are more transparent in their transactions, and will make the tax authorities to even be able to capture those who are running away. I
In
think that
fact,
that
your last submission made me to now give an insight to tell everyone, when you want to send money to me through transfer, please put the right description so that the taxpayer will not run after me. Thank you, Dr. Titi, for welcome. It's been an engaging time with you this evening. But we'll proceed, and I'll take up this question. With the introduction of the Finance Act, has there been any visible improvement in tax compliance? If yes, how have you seen this? And if no, why have we not gotten that?
okay. For every tax reform, it has its pros and cons. And I would say that the Finance Act, like I used to say, is just in time. It's taking us back to the era of the Finance Miscellaneous Decree that used to happen about 30 years ago. And it has also shaping the way tax compliance is in the country. You know, bringing in the minimum, the waivers that we gave to small companies. So
Yeah.
you don't have an excuse not to comply. We've tried to allow you to enjoy your business until you reach 25 million. So if you say I'm still under 25 million, but make sure that you put your records together, make sure that everything supports the fact that you're saying you are a small company and you don't have any tax to pay, 0%. So the only thing is that um, with the use of finance, the finance also brought in technology. The tax authorities can come and then tell you, sorry, we want to review how you do your process, your controls, your technology fit about your tax controls and things like that, and gives them the authority. So that's why today you can sit in the comfort of your room and do your tax filings and make your tax payment. You know, the Finance Act has also come up with some other things that has clarified some areas that seem to be area of disagreement between the tax authorities and the taxpayers.
Taxpayers.
It has also shed more light. Like, for instance, the capital gains tax on compensation for loss of office is one of the things Finance Act has done. Bring more clarification. If you have 10 million above that amount, then you bring in this issue. So it has done a lot to change the face of our tax system and tax compliance. But it has other parts of it, like the education tax on like the income tax on schools, on educational institutions. I think that one, it has given some of us pain because we have increased school fees and we are paying more.
Of course, it goes back to the end users.
So some of it, which I believe may be looked at again, has caused some pain to taxpayers. All the schools now are now seeing it that they're not paying taxes. Is no more the way they do it, and they've increased school fees. And I just pray that children don't get dropped off from school if they can't afford the level of these school fees. They're still struggling to have government schools. You know, those are some of the things. But I believe that as the Finance Act evolves every year, some amendments are done, and it's even making our tax system to be more robust. Everybody is now on top of their toes to see, okay, what can they also amend again in the law? Okay, this is the justification, and they are coming up. We have stakeholder sessions, they discuss it, they come up, and then when you are coming with a suggestion, you come with an issue, you come with a solution, and that's what has been happening. So I think it's been a good one that we've moved into technology, SMEs, revenue collection increase, and things like that. So I believe that we are moving in the right direction. But just to look at some other bottlenecks.
Yeah, as the Finance Act evolves every year, it's give us a more robust tax system that every one of us, whether we like it or not, start complying gradually. Let's proceed as we gradually wind up this program for today. Dr. Titi, how assertive are the Nigerian economic policy, especially on taxation and effective deployment of tax revenue?
Okay. If I generally, if you look at our policies in the country, at times I used to say that we do have policy somersault at times. You know, we give a policy, before you know, another person comes and then gives another policy that unravels what you have before. and that does not make stability. It doesn't give us a stable economy. But in terms of our tax policy, I know we have the national tax policy sometime in 2017. There are some proposals in tax policy which is now being implemented in the Finance Acts. Some of it are being considered, though some are not yet there. I think we still have a lot to do in terms of policy alignment in the country. We need to still look at economic realities when we are now talking about coming up with policies, such that we are not having policies that does not fit into the economic environment of the country. But I think to some extent it's given direction, but it could be better. I think it could be better.
It could be better, sincerely speaking. When you move with the citizen, you must improve their lot from one level to another all the time. Let me quickly take this question from Ernest again. Although I may not be able to do justice to all, it seems like an epistle that was written to the people of taxation. But Dr. Titi, I will simplify it. What is your opinion on the multiplicity of taxes in Nigeria at the federal, at the state, and the local government area in terms of mode of payment and collection? And I think maybe the other one, how can this be harmonized to avoid the inherent challenges of multiple taxation? Let me take that first, because I can see other one behind it. Dr. Titi, over to you.
Okay, Sheson, when I saw this question, I thought it was a research question, but let me try to let me
That's
try
why I said it's an epistle written to Dr.
let me try to address it. You see, when we talk about multiplicity of tax, let me start from the fact that we have Cap T2 LFN 2004 that gives us taxes collectible by federal, by state, and by local government. And if you look at it from that angle, there shouldn't be multiplicity of taxes. The federal knows what they to collect, the state knows what they are to collect, and local government. But what we've seen is that because of pressure for IGR, the states are coming up with so many things that is like tax on income. You already have state, but they are now coming with, they can come with different types of levies. Let me now distinguish between what we have. We have taxes, we have levies. Taxes are the ones that have been in the constitution under the list, legislative list, there's exclusive legislative list. These are taxes to be charged. Now we now have levies. If you look at that Cap T2, it talks about taxes and levies. We have the personal income tax, company income tax, petroleum. Now we have Petroleum Industry Act, so it's no more petroleum profit tax. Now host community tax or something, and some other things. And we have the state taxes. But you now get to the state level, it's still a problem with fiscal federalism. You have so much power at the center. Each state now want to struggle for survival, and they want to be sure that they get this revenue, and there's pressure. There are a lot of things happening, and the local government wants to survive under the states. So who are they all coming to? The same taxpayer. So a taxpayer will get pressure from federal, get pressure from state, and get pressure from local government. And by the time you look at what they're asking for, it is the same thing on the same income, on the same person. So that's where multiplicity comes in, and it's on levies and charges. Now, so if we go by the law as stated, then we shouldn't have. The joint tax board will need to help us to align all these levies and everything. When I've paid income tax and it's shared to the 3 tiers of government, there should not be another tax that looks like income tax to come from state and then come again on the same product or profit that has been taxed at the federal level. So there needs to be some streamlining. And I think that's the essence of having a joint tax board, to look at all these things and see how do we get less pressure on the taxpayer from this angle of different levies, charges coming on top of the taxes that have been paid.
From your submission, you just said it, that the fiscal federalism needs to be worked on so that we relieve the burden on those that are actually complying. I want to believe that our guests have actually been having a quality time. I've seen a lot of comment. Even Fagbola just mentioned to me that we have Teju tax, Taiwo tax, we have Titi tax. Don't worry, I will change my name from Sheson to something that we have T so that I will do tax. But I don't like tax. The only thing I like is to talk. Maybe we'll look for an acronym for that. And
No,
we've
we
been
make
doing justice today.
Sheson talk tax.
Okay, Sheson talk tax. Oh, wonderful. That is a wonderful way to have it. As we round up the session, we've had quality comment all the way from Abuja, Makode, Maiduguri, go to the eastern part, to the south, to the western part here. Every one of them talking about the quality delivery that we've had from our guests today. But I will not let you go until I have this final question. And just trust me, that is my final question. And in closing, Dr. Titi, ICANN is always open to ideas that will positively advance the growth of our members, the accounting profession, and the Nigerian business environment. As we wind up to say goodbye to 2022, what is your advice or suggestion on foreign contribution?
Okay, thank you, Sheson. I think from all we've said, taxation in Nigeria is not yet where it should be. If we compare our position, the way people see us in the world and things like that, even our natural environment within the West Africa coast, who is what we stand to be. There's still a lot to do on tax policy formulation and effectiveness of our tax system. We also have left out tax research. We cannot overemphasize the role of tax research in the scene of developing tax policy. We cannot also overemphasize the role of having formidable tax policies that will guide the next phase of our tax laws and administration in the country. So we need to actually be a pride of nation on tax policy. Our tax laws need to be as current as possible to be an example to others. And then our administration has to be taxpayer friendly. With a smile, with some other things, you can make me to pay what I don't want to pay when you make me so comfortable to pay the tax. And then I'll say, okay, fine. I know I'm not getting it, but okay, because you are my friend, let me just do this thing. Some moral suasion could also do some things. But when it comes to our members in terms of development, ICANN members, I always encourage our ICANN members to have interest in tax research. For those who have the interest, they need to develop it and use it effectively to contribute to tax policy initiatives, things that we need to correct. We are moving into a new year. I know now it's late for anybody to say anything because Finance Act may be signed before the end of this year because the revised Finance Act is ongoing. They've done a lot of sessions. We have done a lot of contribution at that level. So for our members that have the flair for research, let them just take this up. We need to develop this more. Let's see how we can grow our tax system from these ideas. Members that are in tax practice should develop themselves accordingly. They need to be the pride. They need to be a pride in tax professionalism space. They need to not also remember what it takes to practice tax, what the requirements are, and then put themselves in the right position. Well, for our members in tax administration, please seek for ways to ensure that taxpayers are well enlightened on their obligations. Don't lay bait for them to fall in. And then you come and say penalty and interest and then non-compliance. Let them feel cool to do the right thing. Thank you.
One thing I know is that when I have guests like this that are ready to deliver a top-notch, time will just be streaming me out and saying, Sheson, you need to wind up. Let me say we've had a wonderful session with you on our program, ICAN on Air, this day, Thursday, the 8th day of the month of December, and a very beautiful way to end it, talking about effective tax policy, law, and administration, moral suasion from the administrator to make sure that we do it, and to our members to carry out research. On that note, I want to appreciate you, Dr. Titi, for spending your evening with us, and to all our guests for making our time to be part of the program today. And on that note, let me quickly give this announcement before I bring it to a close, that the portal for the fellowship conferment is on. We encourage you to make your registration as we progress. And as we wind up the year, remember that you must be the example that others will motivate. And like we had on Tuesday, there are a lot of things that is out there for us. Dr. Titi has said it today. Let's go out there to assist the informal sector in putting their books together. And with that, we can make our nation great again. On that note, we have come to the end of the program for today, Thursday, the 8th day of the month of December. And I want you to stay safe so that you can connect with me back and to it for now.
Thank you. I'm wishing you all